June 18, 2025, dawn breaks over the Philippine Sea, 70 nautical miles south of Jeju Island. Light moves across water like glass, revealing the geometric precision of a carrier strike group's formation. Through the morning haze, radar signatures multiply. Two Chinese carrier groups operating in tandem, their escorts arranged in concentric rings of steel and sensors. From Cheongju Air Base, a South Korean F-35A Lightning II rolls toward the runway, its mission brief, precise, and routine. What unfolds over the next 14 minutes will transform a standard reconnaissance patrol into a watershed moment of miscalculation. The pilot's camera systems will capture every second, every decision, every consequence. This is not speculation or theater. This is the documented account of how proximity became provocation, how technology amplified tension, and how a single aircraft's approach reshaped the calculus of deterrence across the Western Pacific. The pattern emerged gradually across 7 days in mid-June 2025. Satellite feeds from commercial providers showed twin wakes cutting parallel tracks through international waters. The Liaoning and Shandong, China's first two operational carriers, maintained station 40 nautical miles apart, close enough for mutual support, distant enough for independent operations. Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force logged the positions daily, their P-3C Orions maintaining respectful surveillance distances while transmitting coordinates to regional partners. At fleet headquarters in Yokosuka, analysts noted the deliberate choreography, launch cycles synchronized across both decks, J-15 fighters rising and recovering in practiced intervals. Electronic intelligence stations recorded the radio discipline, minimal chatter, encrypted data bursts, professional exchanges between air controllers. The escort screen numbered 16 vessels, Type 055 destroyers, Type 054A frigates, and replenishment ships maintaining precise geometries around their capital ships. For the first time, China demonstrated sustained dual-carrier operations beyond the first island chain. The tempo suggested months of preparation, fuel calculations, crew rotations, maintenance schedules, every variable optimized for endurance rather than demonstration. Tanker aircraft extended patrol ranges, allowing continuous airborne coverage across a 200-mile radius. Submarine detection helicopters worked grid patterns, their dipping sonars creating acoustic barriers against underwater approach. The operation's scale exceeded anything previously documented in open waters east of Taiwan. Regional militaries adjusted their own patterns in response. Japanese F-2 fighters increased patrol frequency along the Ryukyu chain. American P-8 Poseidons operating from Kadena logged extended missions, their sensors cataloging electromagnetic emissions and communication protocols. South Korea's intelligence services synthesized the data streams, building comprehensive pictures of Chinese naval capability in real time. The week marked a transition from theoretical possibility to operational reality. Two carrier groups projecting sustained presence across contested waters. By June 17th, the formation had covered 800 nautical miles, their track curving south toward the Philippine Sea's deeper waters. Replenishment cycles proceeded without disruption. Stores transferred between moving vessels with practiced efficiency. Weather systems passed through without affecting operations, the groups adjusting course to maintain favorable wind across their flight decks. International shipping adapted, commercial vessels adding buffer distances to their routes. The new reality settled across the region like morning fog, persistent, undeniable, and increasingly routine. South Korea's air defense identification zone extends like an invisible shield across the waters between the peninsula and Japan. Within this volume, every aircraft must identify itself, state its intentions, follow prescribed corridors. The boundaries exist in procedure manuals and radar screens, not physical markers. Controllers in Seoul manage this three-dimensional chess game 24 hours a day, separating military flights from civilian traffic, allied aircraft from potential intruders. The F-35A squadrons at Cheongju had rehearsed these intercepts hundreds of times. Standard operating procedure demanded specific responses to specific stimuli. Unknown radar contact enters the zone. Launch the ready alert pair. Contact fails to respond to radio queries. Vector interceptors for visual identification. The checklist contained no ambiguity, no room for interpretation. Pilots memorized approach angles, safe distances, communication protocols. The goal was always identification and deterrence, never confrontation. On June 18th, the morning brief highlighted the Chinese carrier group's position and projected movements. Intelligence assessments suggested continued operations along along established tracks, no indication of aggressive intent. The reconnaissance mission would gather updated imagery, electronic signatures, and operational patterns. Captain Lee Jun-ho, 5 years into his F-35 assignment, reviewed the flight path with methodical precision. His aircraft would maintain altitude above 30,000 feet, employ passive sensors only, remain outside the carrier group's estimated engagement envelope. The technology aboard his aircraft represented the pinnacle of sensor fusion. Distributed aperture system cameras provided 360-degree coverage. The AN/APG-81 radar could track multiple targets while maintaining electronic silence. The electro-optical targeting system offered magnification capable of reading hull numbers from 50 miles away. Every bit of data would flow through secure data links to command centers in real time. The mission profile emphasized observation over interaction, intelligence gathering over presence. Demonstration: weather conditions favored the operation. High clouds providing concealment, minimal turbulence, visibility extending to the horizon. The F-35A launched at 0634 hours, climbing rapidly through commercial air corridors before leveling at operational altitude. Ground controllers tracked the aircraft's progress, maintaining continuous communication while monitoring Chinese fleet radar emissions. The first 40 minutes proceeded according to plan, the jet's signature management systems functioning perfectly, its presence undetected by the carrier group's sensors. September's revelations about the Fujin carrier had shifted regional calculations. Electromagnetic catapult launches of J-35 stealth fighters, KJ-600 early warning aircraft, and upgraded J-15T strike fighters demonstrated capability previously limited to American carriers. The technology leap meant sustained, high-tempo operations, more aircraft, heavier payloads, extended range. Every Pacific military updated their threat assessments, their response protocols, their engagement calculations. Captain Lee's heads-up display showed the Chinese formations clearly, his sensors painting detailed pictures of their disposition. The Liaoning operated 12 miles north of the Shandong, both carriers turning into the wind for flight operations. His mission parameters authorized approach to 60 nautical miles, well outside surface-to-air missile range, but close enough for detailed observation. The electronic warfare suite indicated search radars sweeping in predictable patterns, no targeting emissions detected. At 0718 hours, Lee initiated his observation run, banking gently to maintain optimal sensor angles. His cameras captured J-15 launches from the Liaoning ski jump bow, the aircraft climbing steeply before leveling toward their patrol stations. The Shandong's deck showed similar activity, recovery operations alternating with launches in practice succession. Escort vessels maintained their screening positions, their radar emissions suggesting routine air search rather than heightened alert. The data collection proceeded smoothly for 12 minutes. Thermal imaging revealed engine temperatures, maintenance activities, personnel movements on deck. Signal intelligence equipment cataloged communication frequencies, data link protocols, and navigation radar characteristics. Every piece of information would enhance understanding of Chinese carrier operations, their strengths, limitations, and standard procedures. Lee maintained his track, following the prescribed racetrack pattern that kept him equidistant from both carrier groups. At 0730 hours, the situation changed. A pair of J-15s altered course, vectors converging toward his position. Their altitude increased steadily. Afterburners engaged, intent unmistakable. Lee's threat warning receiver remained silent. No targeting radar, no missile locks. The Chinese pilots appeared to be executing a standard intercept, likely cued by shipboard radars that had detected his presence despite the F-35's low observability. Protocol demanded he maintain course, avoid provocative maneuvers, and prepare for visual identification at safe distance. Training scenarios had covered this situation extensively. Two interceptors approaching from his 10 o'clock position, climbing through 25,000 feet, closure rate suggesting intercept in 4 minutes. Lee transmitted his status to ground control, received acknowledgement, continued his sensor sweep. The Chinese fighters would approach, photograph his aircraft, possibly attempt radio contact, then escort him away from their formation. Standard procedure, repeated thousands of times across the world's oceans. But the J-15's approach trajectory suggested something different. Their angle would bring them uncomfortably close, inside the 500-meter safety buffer that prevented wake turbulence encounters. Lee adjusted his heading by 10 degrees, a subtle message that he acknowledged their presence and would cooperate with their escort. The Chinese pilots matched his adjustment, maintaining their collision course. Ground control monitored the developing situation, advising Lee to maintain professional demeanor while documenting everything. At 0734 hours, with the J-15s 2 miles away and closing fast, Lee faced a critical decision. His route would take him directly between the two carrier groups in 6 minutes. Technically an international airspace, but provocatively close to ongoing flight operations. The original mission plan hadn't accounted for the carriers converging toward each other, their combined operating area now spanning the gap he'd planned to transit. Turning away would acknowledge Chinese control over international airspace. Continuing straight would bring him within 20 miles of both carriers simultaneously. The F-35's tactical computer offered multiple options, each with calculated risk assessments. Turn north, extend the mission, burn fuel reserves, potentially encounter additional interceptors. Turn south, move toward shipping lanes, risk civilian traffic interference, complicate any emergency landing requirements. Maintain course. Accept close proximity to Chinese carriers. Rely on international law and professional conduct. Document any aggressive behavior for diplomatic purposes. Lee chose to descend and accelerate, dropping to 15,000 feet while increasing speed to Mach 0.95. The maneuver would complicate the J-15's intercept geometry while demonstrating no hostile intent. Military aircraft routinely descended to avoid confrontation. His sensors continued recording, capturing the Chinese pilot's response, their aircraft struggling to match his rate of descent. Ground control approved the deviation, noting that lower altitude would actually improve intelligence collection on the carrier group's surface vessels. What followed entered the official record as unsafe and unprofessional behavior in South Korean military documentation. The lead J-15, attempting to match Lee's descent rate, overshot his altitude and entered an inverted dive to regain position. The maneuver brought the Chinese fighter within 50 meters of the F-35's canopy. Close enough for Lee to see the other pilot's helmet details, close enough for jet wash to buffet his aircraft. Warning alarms sounded as the proximity threatened collision. Lee held steady, his cameras capturing every second of the encounter. The second J-15 positioned itself on his starboard wing, maintaining a more professional 100-meter separation. For 3 minutes, the three aircraft flew in dangerous formation, Lee transmitting continuous warnings about unsafe distance on international emergency frequencies. The Chinese pilots remained silent, their aircraft matching every minor course adjustment, their presence preventing any evasive maneuvers. Below, both carrier groups had suspended flight operations, their decks cleared, defensive systems activated. At 0737 hours, the Lianing's escort screen began radiating targeting emissions, fire control radars painting Lee's aircraft, missile systems warming up. His threat warning systems cataloged each signal, Type 346 radars from Type 052D destroyers, HQ-9 illuminators from Type 055 cruisers, close-in weapon systems from frigates. The electronic warfare suite automatically initiated countermeasures, though Lee knew the gesture was largely symbolic. At this range, inside the engagement envelope of dozens of surface-to-air missiles, survival would depend on politics, not technology. Ground control issued immediate recall orders. Lee acknowledged, beginning a gradual turn toward Korean airspace. The J-15s matched his turn initially, maintaining their uncomfortable proximity for another 2 minutes before suddenly breaking away. They climbed rapidly, afterburners blazing, returning to their carrier group's protective umbrella. Lee's sensors tracked their departure, recording fuel streams that suggested they were approaching bingo fuel, the cost of their aggressive intercept. As distances opened, the targeting emissions ceased, radars returning to search mode. The intelligence value of those 14 minutes exceeded months of satellite observation. Lee's sensors had captured launch procedures, deck layouts, communication protocols, and electronic signatures at unprecedented resolution. The unsafe intercept itself provided insights into Chinese rules of engagement, risk tolerance, and pilot training. His aircraft's automatic systems had cataloged every radar emission, building a comprehensive electronic order of battle for both carrier strike groups. The data would feed analysis centers across allied nations, refining understanding of Chinese naval capabilities, but the strategic implications overshadowed the intelligence gains. Within hours, both governments issued statements. South Korea condemning dangerous maneuvers that threatened aviation safety, China asserting its right to defend against reconnaissance activities that threaten national security. The incident dominated regional security discussions for weeks, each side releasing selected video segments that supported their narratives. Military attachés exchanged diplomatic notes, demanding assurances about future conduct, proposing confidence-building measures that neither side truly expected to implement. Conclusion: the footage exists now in classified archives and public fragments. A dance of composite materials and diplomatic tensions at 15,000 feet. Captain Lee's cockpit recordings show steady hands despite proximity alarms, professional communication despite provocative behavior. The Chinese videos released through state media emphasize their pilot's its decisive response to foreign surveillance. Both narratives contain truth, neither captures the full reality of those 14 minutes when protocol dissolved into improvisation. In the months that followed, patrol patterns adjusted across the region. South Korean F-35s maintained greater standoff distances, relying more heavily on electronic surveillance than visual observation. Chinese carrier operations expanded their defensive perimeters, early warning aircraft extending the detection bubble, interceptors launching earlier against approaching reconnaissance flights. The invisible boundaries of the Western Pacific had shifted, not through treaty or agreement, but through the accumulated weight of operational precedent. The incident entered military academies' case studies, a practical examination of technology, doctrine, and human decision-making under pressure. Instructors emphasized the paradox, how the F-35's advanced sensors had gathered invaluable intelligence while simultaneously creating the conditions for dangerous confrontation. Students debated Captain Lee's decision to continue his approach, the Chinese pilot's aggressive intercept tactics, the role of strategic signaling versus tactical safety. No consensus emerged, only an appreciation for complexity. Today, carrier groups still patrol these waters, their movements tracked by satellites and reconnaissance flights that maintain respectful distances. The lessons of June 18, 2025 inform every interaction, understood but unspoken, documented but not acknowledged. Fighter pilots on both sides know the boundaries now, not the ones drawn on charts, but the ones etched by experience and near disaster. They fly their missions with heightened awareness, understanding that in the span of 14 minutes, routine can transform into crisis, proximity into provocation. The dance continues across the Western Pacific, measured in radar sweeps and fuel calculations, diplomatic protests, and operational adjustments. Each side pushes gently against established limits, testing resolve without triggering escalation. The carriers project power through presence. The fighters demonstrate capability through proximity, and the vast ocean absorbs these tensions like it has absorbed countless others throughout history. Somewhere between international law and operational reality, between sovereign rights and strategic necessity, the new balance takes shape. Documented, analyzed, and carefully maintained. And in the quiet moments between launches, when deck crews pause and radar operators adjust their screens, the memory of those 14 minutes serves as a reminder, not of victory or defeat, but of how quickly the routine can fracture, how narrow the margins remain between professional interaction and dangerous confrontation. The evidence exists in terabytes of sensor data, in classified reports and public statements, in the adjusted procedures that now govern every reconnaissance flight. This is the reality of modern deterrence. Not dramatic confrontation, but careful calibration, each side reading the other's intentions through the language of proximity and protocol. The sun sets now behind the carrier formations, their silhouettes dark against the orange horizon. Radio chatter continues in measured tones, professional exchanges that mask underlying tensions. Tomorrow will bring new patrols, new intercepts, new moments of calculated risk. The game continues, its rules written not in treaties but in the accumulated precedent of incidents like Captain Lee's 14 minutes. Each encounter adding another line to the unwritten manual of strategic competition in confined seas. And somewhere in the space between competition and conflict, between presence and provocation, the future of the Pacific Maritime Order continues to take shape, one sortie at a time.